Dorian frowned lightly as the armored man and Twi'lek didn't react. He had them surrounded. He had what they wanted. And they were doing nothing. Or should I say Jedi? He taunted. That got a reaction. But not one Dorian had hoped for. I really wish he hadn't said that. Why? The Twi'lek asked curiously. She didn't seem particularly bothered either. He interrupted the man's reply. He knew to maintain the momentum in conversation. I should be thanking you, really. Your little distraction, and killing that fool Kragus, allowed me to finally dominate the others. The others? The Twi'lek piped up. The armored man replied before he could. I imagine he's talking about the other armies. Didn't know that one was a leader though. Ah. Dorian scoffed. Kragus may be a fool, but he wasn't weak. Almost sad I missed it, but I had more important matters to attend to. The man tilted his head. Yes, taking over the other factions. You said that already. Dorian shook his head. You idiots can't even keep track of a simple conversation. He motioned to his followers. Shoot them. They loyally raised their blasters, the Twi'lek stepping behind the man. The man whose lightsaber had already ignited, blocking the first shot calmly. Dorian raised his hand to stop his Sith from attacking, curious. I, on a good day, am able to block 5 shooters at once. You may have my power, but I doubt you have lived the last decade on a battlefield. The stranger didn't reply. Dorian raised an eyebrow when one bolt flew back to its shooter. Then 3 more. He was just about to order his Sith to charge when the armored man stepped forward. In the second it took Dorian to bring his hand down, 6 more of his soldiers were dead as bolts ricocheted, the stranger's movements seeming to blur. A wiggle of doubt formed in his mind. His Sith surged forward, one falling to his knees before he could pass half the distance. Dorian's eye twitched as the Twi'lek shot another. Mandalorian, he spat. Only one of those cursed mercenaries can aim like that. Kill them both. The Sith reached the man, who by now had dispatched most of his best troops. Soldiers he needed to suppress the things crawling from deeper in the temple. 2 more Sith fell to knives, flying fast and hitting true. Dorian considered that. The stranger felt about as strong as him, but strength meant nothing without control. Maintaining high accuracy telekinesis while fighting was a good trick, true, but it was nothing compared to him. He had been sharpening his skills for decades while this boy couldn't be more than 20. Speaking of skills, that gave him an idea. He reached into the Force, pressing down on the Twi'lek. Without his pet Mandalorian the stranger would fall, and then he could turn to more important matters. Like playing with Destra. She was turning into a rather fun project of his mind spinning with all the things he was going to do to her. He was snapped back to reality as the Force ran against a barrier around the Twi'lek. No matter. Shielded soldiers were as rare as they were wasteful, and distracted the wielder to boot. Dorian pressed harder. He fully opened his eyes when it failed to snuff out the Mandalorian, seeing half his Sith dead on the ground. 10 Sith, dead in seconds. He barked angrily. Do you have any idea how long it took me to collect them? How much effort I spent making sure they were the prettiest they could be? He grabbed for his lightsaber, surging forward. The man was forced to meet him, leaving the rest of his men to deal with the Twi'lek. The stranger put up a decent enough fight, he admitted to himself. Nothing he couldn't overcome, of course, but relatively skilled nonetheless. Dorian blocked a punch to the gut, feeling his bones squeak in protest. He cursed. Bull-headed barbarians were the worst. Fleshcrafter. He accused. Your ilk should be thrown into the sun. He spared a moment's attention to see if the Twi'lek was dead yet. She wasn't. Instead his Sith were being harassed by those damned knives, the Mandalorian kicking one into the wall. You strengthened your pet? He demanded, disgust roaring in his stomach. Irresponsible beyond words. I'll have to make sure she cannot be resurrected, lest she spread that poisoned mind of hers to others. In all my years of command I've never. You've been here less than 2 months. The stranger interrupted calmly, stepping back as his lightsaber cut a groove in the stone. And it seems that was far too long already. I'll admit your enforcement is solid, and you clearly possess knowledge about the Force, but let's not pretend you're a Lord of the Sith. Dorian snarled. I will not have some whelp question my very existence. He pressed, snapping a kick to his opponent's leg. His foot rebounded like hitting stone. 2 months. Before that you were a slave of some description, judging by the collar. I can sympathize. Why haven't you taken it off? Take off my crown, taken from Brita the succubus herself? I think not. Dorian sheared off a piece of armor, just missing flesh. The stranger fell back, overwhelmed. Brita the succubus. The man repeated slowly. Yay, sure. Heard she really sucked. The Mandalorian giggled, Dorian snapping his head to her. 10 Sith and she still wasn't dead yet? He found the girl strangling his last follower, lifting him off the ground. His last mortal troops had died minutes ago, Dorian cursing their loyalty. Bringing reinforcements would have been more useful. I can get used to this. Don't try that with the real deal. The man warned her, fending off his flurry of attacks. They may look like them, but proper Sith have actual experience. He cursed. With his last follower dead he might have to retreat. More soldiers could be fetched, then the whelp would see what a true Sith could do. Stop playing with him, Morgan. That armor is expensive to repair. Dorian scoffed. Then his hand burned, and he looked to find it falling. His enforcement was interesting. Morgan defended. Besides, had to make sure the rest of them were dead first. Can't very well have them run off and tell their friends about the Jedi. The Force screamed in warning, coming too late for him to dodge. Stars danced as he scrambled back, broken nose leaking blood. He managed to slap the knife away, still scoring a deep cut on his remaining hand. He couldn't do the same for the bolt, feeling his nerves scream as his knee evaporated. I am Dorian the Conqueror, he spat. The Liberator. You will know. The other knife took him in his right eye, sinking deep. His last sight was the armored man shaking his head. If I ever catch you monologuing, Veta, you're grounded for a month. You can't do that. Veta whined. Derek is having his party on Friday, everyone will be there. Besides, she complained, you were doing the same thing. Morgan shook his head. I was stalling. Buying time. Very different. How? Because. He reasoned. Boo. Weak. Oh, be silent, I wasn't the one strangling people. Veta looked at the corpse-covered floor. It's your fault I'm getting used to this. It is not. Morgan denied, walking to the exit. Yes it is. Before joining up with you I killed maybe once a year, if that. Now look at me, snapping necks like a psycho. She shook her head in sorrow. All your fault. Morgan ignored her, therefore winning the argument. There was blessed silence for a whole 20 steps, getting him just out of the temple proper. We forgot the thingy. Veta told him idly. Morgan stopped, scowling at her. You waited to tell me that until we were outside. He accused. It's like you want the rats to get in. What? You know, because it feels like rats scratching at my mind? No? Veta stopped, looking at him in concern. Her helmet did nothing to make her face seem less hesitant. You okay there, boss? You don't feel that, really? She took her helmet off, frowning. Go wait outside, I'll get the MacGuffin. Don't go all meta on me. He warned, following her back inside anyway. And it's not like they can get past my mental shield. I'd be as mad as those poor sods if they could. This did feel a little easy. She admitted. It's that bad? No wonder the troops outside seem so jumpy. Morgan hummed. Not fun. Luckily I am very skilled in skilling my skilled mental shield. Your force freeze seems to be holding too. Dorian tried to do something to your soul, not that you even seemed to notice. Veta snatched the device from where the pretend Sith had dropped it. Shit boss, Good thinking on getting that force resistance thing on me. And we're not calling it force freeze. Force. He corrected. With a capital F, I can tell. Veta rolled her eyes. Still not calling it force freeze. Morgan turned around, walking back outside again after taking the device from Veta. He heard her say something, only barely able to catch it. Really good thinking, actually. She didn't press as they walked back to camp, something he was glad for. Not like he had a good explanation for half his actions, and something in him churned when he lied to Veta. The camp was acting like a kicked beehive, troopers frantically coming and going. Sith were stationed at the perimeter, unlike before, and 3 heavy repeaters were being assembled facing the temple. It seemed the Lord had finally gotten his reinforcements. Said Lord was also at the perimeter, looking over the stretch of ground where chewed-on corpses could still be seen leading up to the temple. The beasts had mostly dispersed with Dorian's death, but some had decided the fresh meat was worth sticking around for. You're back. I hope you sealed the chambers of the ancients? Kelith Ur's chamber especially. I am none too eager to find out what would happen if that ancient and his crazed ideas were to re-emerge. Veta had abandoned him to poke at the heavy repeaters, the soldiers assembling them visibly torn between telling her off and looking at him nervously. He ignored them, focusing on the Lord. The tombs are sealed. He acknowledged. And we've managed to deal a blow to the forces still remaining in the temple. Dorian, one of the generals, ambushed us as we were leaving. He boasted about taking control over the soldiers in the temple, and his assortment of force wielders all but confirmed it. It's likely most true Sith are all dead, as he had mostly pretenders with him. Morgan felt a flinch of hesitation from the Lord, though nothing was to be found on his face. Did you find anything else? Something that might make this disaster worth it? No way in hell was he telling him. Nothing the Sith would be interested in. Mostly artifacts of minor importance. That didn't mean he was going to lie. The Lord frowned. Pity. Well, a proper battalion of Sith have finally arrived. Containing the temple should be feasible now, at least until it has calmed. I would advise you to clear it entirely, Lord. The forces inside are in disarray, and with proper mental shields the influence from the temple can be mitigated. The Lord scoffed. Like I have the lords to spare. No, containment will have to do. It's a miracle you did not succumb, and twice over your slave didn't either. Still, no surprise Darth Baras's apprentice possesses a strong will. Morgan resisted frowning. What's he on about? Soft voice and I bargained with Astra long before we stepped onto the academy proper, and she was an acolyte. Do most really not learn it before becoming a lord? Do you have any advice, my lord? For when I build my own? He hedged. At worst he looked like a fool, something he could live with. The Lord scoffed. Far be it for me to train another's apprentice. Your master will teach you if you become a lord yourself, and have attained the proper control. Now, your assistance has proved helpful, and I am a firm believer that such things should be rewarded. He called over a soldier, carrying several lightsabers. The Lord motioned to Morgan. Yours is an old one, and technology has progressed since then. I advise replacing all but the crystal. He made a dismissive gesture, so Morgan bowed. Prying Veta away from the heavy machine guns proved difficult, but the bribe of assisting with the construction of a lightsaber did the trick. She still complained bitterly about not being able to fire the very big gun. Her words. Grik Sonosan, spy extraordinaire and currently regretting that career choice, awakened just as the armored Sith entered the room. His first proper thought was that the Darth had probably timed that to be dramatic. When I sent you into the Dark Temple for the Ravager, I thought it might be the last time I saw you, apprentice. The prisoner grows weaker by the minute. There's no time to spare. Grik scoffed, a sound so weak no one heard it. Like whatever device they had found would break him. His vault was secure, the keyhole long since filled with durasteel. Darth Baras dramatically handed back the object his apprentice had just given him. A reward, apprentice, for a job well done. Use it, and get your first proper taste of the power that is wielded by the lords among lords." The man, having long since removed his helmet, nodded. The Twi'lek, looking uncertain yet making no move to leave, took a few steps to the side. "That avenue of assistance is closed, then. Shame. My name is Morgan." The Sith introduced himself politely. He waited expectantly, Grik rolling his eyes. "Rick Sonosan, sis." Morgan nodded. "I advise you to tell me what my master wishes to know." Grik rolled his eyes harder. "A polite Sith, now I've seen everything." "Afraid not, champ. State secrets and all, you understand." His new interrogator nodded amicably. "I do. Two can keep a secret if one of them is dead, or so they say. One last chance. Tell me, and spare yourself the worst experience of your life." Grik stuck his tongue out at the Sith, partly to cover up a twinkle of uncertainty. Blustering he could deal with. Pain, hunger, sleep deprivation. All things he had been trained to resist. This was new. An honest desire to spare him pain, with a firm belief that whatever that thing in his hands was would make him talk. The Sith shook his head, his eyes leaking a moment of sympathy. Then it was gone, and the Sith placed the device on his face. "Good," Barras muttered. "The Ravager will soon seize his mind. In his condition we don't have long before the ordeal liquefies all brain matter. I will interrogate him, apprentice." Grik was used to his mind palace looking like a vault. He had built it long ago, and he, at the time, could think of no place more secure than his mother's safe. It had seemed so unbreakable when he was younger, a hypothesis he had tested over long afternoons. His mother had caught him, of course, seeing as he was barely a boy. Instead of slapping his hands, as she did when he stole a cookie without permission, she had tilted her head inquisitively instead. The afternoon where she had taught him simple lock-picking tricks was still a favorite memory of his. When he had finally gotten that safe open, after many, many failed attempts, he had been disappointed to find letters. Simple paper. He didn't know at the time that those letters were worth more than any gold that could have fit. Didn't know that even the paper was worth a small fortune, never mind what was written on it. Now he was under attack. The safe, once no larger than his torso, had been scaled up to serve as a memory focus. But he wasn't used to standing in it. To see the inside walls, the small mountain of items representing information. A mind palace was not a real thing. It was a memory exercise. A trick. He couldn't be here. "Come on out, dear. I didn't teach you how to open that safe so you can hide away in it." A voice called. Grik flinched. His mother's voice. A voice belonging to a woman dead for decades. He shook his head violently. "Come now, Gricky. Dinner's almost ready, and you need to wash up," she called more sternly. He took a step towards the door without realizing it. Then he took 2 steps back, clasping his hands over his ears. This wasn't real. A Sith deception. An illusion. "My mind is a vault, and you don't have the key," he insisted to himself. He heard faint knocking on the door, growing more insistent. He repeated the mantra, looking at the pile of items on the floor. Yes, he had to get rid of them. They were important, but he couldn't remember why. He had to get rid of them. Grik scooped up a pen, breaking it in half. The knocking intensified, his mother demanding to be let in. Grik tore the pages out of a book, stuffing them in his mouth. More items needed to be destroyed. Yes, quick. An old journal, covered in blood, burned to ashes. A Durasteel torch, marked with strange symbols, shatters into splinters. An old hat, once belonging to a renowned smuggler, trampled and soaked. Torn to bits after, just to be sure. All items held some significance to him, but he couldn't remember. They made no sense. They had to be broken. Destroyed. They would not win. Who were they? Why was he doing this? He whirled around as the door creaked open. His mother scowled at him, laughter playing in her eyes. "I taught you how to open that safe, I can open it myself." She looked just like he remembered. As he wanted to remember her. Before the sickness took her strength. Before his father's death took her spark. She scooped him up, fitting snugly against her chest. The items on the ground melted away. Come, washing before dinner. Then we can see if Hetra won't like to visit. Grick buried his head in her shoulder, cheeks flaming red. His mother chuckled. I know you like her. She knows you like her. Strangers, seeing you two together for less than a minute, know you like her. He scowled at her. It's not like that. She nodded indulgently, walking out the door. White washed over them, until all he could hear was her voice. Of course not, dear. I am with the Republic Information Service, on special assignment to verify possible Imperial spies on Nar Shaddaa. Grick droned. It took all of Veta's power not to take another step towards the door. She wasn't abandoning Morgan here again, to face this horror alone. That didn't mean seeing someone reduced to an emotionless husk was any easier, unfortunately. I was commissioned by the Jedi Council, acting on suspicions provided by Master Nomen Karr. Nomen Karr, Varys spat. Naturally. How did he come to suspect my spy on Nar Shaddaa? Tell me, Republic wretch, what alerted him? Master Nomen Karr has a new Padawan. She seems to know any being's true nature. She senses hidden darkness and untapped purity. Grick provided calmly. All I know is that when Master Nomen Karr brought her to Nar Shaddaa, this Padawan sensed the darkness in your spy by looking at him. Veta stood her ground as Barras shook with rage. If this young Padawan can see through deception and disguise with such little effort, she threatens everything I have worked for. Continue, Republic dog. Karr believes this Padawan's ability is foolproof, but the Jedi Council is skeptical. I was to provide the evidence, but I wasn't able to report my findings. Grick twitched, muscles pulling tight against the restraints. Blood leaked from his nose, his eyes sickly yellow. Barras pressed anyway. Who is this Padawan? Tell me everything you know about her. She was found on Alderaan. Contrary to Grick's physical state, his voice was calm and even. Her power first emerged training on Tatooine. The Jedi send another agent to investigate someone she suspected on Balmorra. He's fading. Barras cursed, leaning closer. Is she human? What is her name? Where can I find her? Grick mumbled something, Veta not able to hear. By the way Barras tore the man from his restraints and threw him at the wall, it wasn't anything useful. The body sagged to the ground, the Ravager still attached to his head. Morgan walked over, detaching it and closing the man's eyes respectfully. Barras didn't seem to notice until her boss set it down on the table. The Ravager has emptied his mind. That is all we have to go on, a few random places within the greater galaxy where Nomen Karr and his Padawan have been. Who is he? Morgan inquired. Veta had no idea how he managed to look so calm. Jedi Master Nomen Karr. He is a shadow, and one not as soft as his peers. He is, in fact, one of the few able to pose as a lord. It is where we met. I found him out, and during his escape he wounded me most severely. Ah, great. We're probably going to have to kill him. She thought sarcastically. Should you ever meet him, apprentice, I advise you to treat him with all the caution you can muster. He hates the dark, yet has made a more thorough study of it than all but few of his peers. Darth Barras sat behind his desk, appearing to have regained his calm. Your duties are likely to take you to the far reaches of the galaxy, and I will need to deploy you at will. You shall have a starship of your own. Go to my personal hangar in the spaceport and claim it. Once you have, await my instruction. Morgan bowed. As you command, my lord. Veta shivered as they flew away from the citadel, staring at her feet. That was maybe the worst thing I've ever been part of. It's certainly the worst thing I've done. Morgan confirmed. I can argue that Barras ordered me to. I can argue that I gave him a chance. I can even argue he knew the risks when joining Sis. But in the end I broke him to get what I wanted. And Barras still has the device. He can do that again. she half asked. Morgan didn't answer, but they both knew the man would. She privately hoped someone would take it away, if they found it. Another Sith. A Jedi. She didn't care. If being the operative word, as Barras would do anything in his considerable power to keep it secret. Veta certainly would, if she was in the man's shoes. The spaceport was, as he had previously observed with his keen eye, enormous. Barras had several private hangars, and likely many more unofficial ones, but they were a ways away from any other owned by the Sith. They checked in with a board official upon arriving at the private hangar, one that didn't seem impressed at talking to a Sith. He noted down their names, something Veta seemed unhappy with, and gave them directions to the small sub-hangar that contained their new ship. The ship itself was a Fury-class Imperial Interceptor, something the official had helpfully told them. It looked much like he remembered, only the scales seeming off. It towered over them, but a tickle in the Force distracted him from examining it properly. A tickle that transformed into a scream as he stepped to the side, the lightsaber passing so close past his face he felt his eyebrows shrink back from the heat. He whirled on his ambusher, his own lightsaber coming up in a guard rest. A cyborg stood before them, one that seemed familiar. It clicked after the man opened his mouth, a soundless scream echoing out. "You're that asshole from Graythan's estate. The one I fried with my EMP. Veta accused. Morgan tore your head off." He kept his knives sheathed, seeing as they hadn't done much last time. The dark seemed turbulent in the cyborg, more so than normal. Anger washed off the man in waves, but fear was plentiful too. Interesting. Not to sound naive, but Veta's right. I killed you. How are you alive? The man opened his mouth, his synthetic voice filling the hangar. His lips didn't move. Lord Graythan remade me after my fall. Stitched me back together with masterful alchemy. Now I will have my revenge. Veta nearly tore off his head with her sniper. Morgan frowned as he blocked a wild counterstrike, forcing the cyborg to give her space as he backed up. Not looking too good there. I can feel what they did, seeing as your shield is more a blob of spiky anger. Gatekeeping aside, it's a pathetic attempt at flesh grafting. Morgan frowned again as he feigned past the cyborg's guard, scoring a deep gash. You're supposed to be his top assassin, right? Must have lost quite a bit in the operation if this is the best you have, the cyborg screamed, waves of hatred washing over his mental shield. He sighed, stepping left and taking the man's arm. It flopped to the ground. The man's head joined after another 3 passes, this time cutting it in half instead of merely off. The Force screamed, giving him just enough warning to turn. Fire engulfed him, his last effort blowing Veta across the hangar. Darkness claimed him, one he hadn't seen in a long while. The image of a mocking face made of shadow briefly flashed in his mind, before all went silent. Wake up! Teacher barked. Morgan blearily opened his eyes, pain battering at his psyche. The explosion damaged your lungs, fool boy. Focus and assess the damage, now. He looked forward instead, still drowsy. Endless black filled his vision. It took him a moment to realize he was looking out at space. Morgan tried to ask a question, namely how much time had passed, but only a gurgle came out. Don't try to speak, you'll just make it worse, teacher snapped. Focus and follow my instructions. You're not ready for this level of regeneration, so you better give it your best. He closed his eyes, seeing Veta climb the ceiling just before he did. His lungs were fucked, as teacher had already informed him, but feeling the extent of the damage was sobering. Several punctures were leaking blood, and closing those was his first priority. He could feel the Force swirl around his body, and he had the vague suspicion they were taking over some biological functions. He had no idea how he was still alive otherwise. Morgan lost track of time as he worked, hot-fixing the worst of the damage. When he opened his eyes he saw a pool of blood with several metal fragments at his feet, teacher nowhere to be seen. He realized he had tuned the man out somewhere along the process. Breathing came easier, and he slowly felt the Force return to normal. Pain still nagged at his mind, but he focused past it with ease born of experience. Veta came scrambling up as he stood and moved to a proper chair, settling down gently. She handed him a datapad, dropping a handful of small electronics on the floor. She shrugged when he looked at it. Bugs. Figured I might as well make myself useful. What happened? He typed. How long was I out? Veta nodded, sitting on the chair next to him in the cockpit. She seemed jittery. Cyborg Man had a bomb in his chest. It was rigged with a dead man's switch, or so spaceport security tells me. You've been out for hours, but we're still in orbit around Dromund Kaas. He reached out, patting her hand awkwardly. Glad you're okay. She snatched it back as if stung. What the actual fuck, Morgan? That guy had a fucking bomb in his chest. One strong enough that hangar won't be used for weeks. Teacher said that if you hadn't been wearing armor, or hadn't turned around, you'd be dead. Dead. Morgan raised his hand, typing with the other. I'm still alive. Should have figured it out when they sent an unstable assassin after us. Sorry. Veta surged to her feet. Don't you dare apologize. I saw the footage, I remember how I went flying before the explosion even went off. You pushed me, you utter fool. Didn't think to maybe jump away, or push the guy instead. No, you had to try and save me, someone who, by the way, was standing 100 feet further off. Your armor was lighter. He rebuffed sullenly. I'm not arguing. She huffed, the energy draining out of her. This isn't how this is supposed to go. You're supposed to be the cold Sith, uncaring for all but power. The Conqueror, or whatever nonsense they teach at Korriban. You're not supposed to have the heroic sacrifice, or care about a girl you've known for half a year. He typed, frustrated at the slow speed. We don't choose who we care about. Yes, I could have handled it better. I will, should anything like this ever happen again. But I don't regret it. That shrapnel would have gone through you like butter, never mind the fact that I'm better at healing myself to begin with. Veta sagged further. After the fact, reasonable logic doesn't change that you tried to save me over yourself. You can't tell me that's normal for most people, let alone Sith. I'm not afraid to die. He admitted, looking over her shoulder. But I don't want to do this alone again. A shadow of a smile fluttered over her lips. Spoken like you know what's going to happen. Say with insisting you make me resistant to the Force, right before it almost trivializes the danger from the temple. Like how you didn't know how money worked, but somehow have a near-expert knowledge about Revan of all people. A trill of alarm went through him, but she held up her hand. You're entitled to your secrets, just like I'm entitled to mine. If today has done anything, it's proven you aren't keeping it from me out of malice. Silence reigned for a minute, both of them looking at the vast nothing outside the window. Morgan broke it by picking up the datapad again, curious. Why aren't I pumped full of drugs, and how'd you get spaceport security to hand over footage of what happened? She looked at him sideways. The apprentice to a Darth was just attacked on their watch, blowing up the private hangar of said Darth in the process. They all but fell over themselves to provide anything I asked for. Teacher said the drugs would mess with your control, whatever that means. Insisted you'd be fine on your own. That made sense. Speaking of Barras, he needed to report. That was going to be fun without being able to speak. He stood, showing her the datapad. Going to report to Barras. Good thinking in sweeping the ship. Veta watched him shuffle out, the knot in her chest tightening even as she grinned at him. Well, I'm properly fucked now. She went back to inspecting the ship, climbing down to storage. She patted herself on the back for sweeping the cockpit first, as that conversation wasn't one she would particularly like stored in some database. Her nerves calmed as she worked, the talk with Morgan slowly convincing her that he was really all right. Well, aside from not being able to speak. Or move faster than a snail. Or lift his arms over his shoulder. She forced that image out of her head, focusing on the scanner. Veta grinned as she pried another bug out of a crate, embedded into the lid. It made a satisfying crunch as she crushed it in her hand. To her surprise, teacher came floating over. Any brain damage, or were you too busy making googly eyes at him to notice? She shook her head, injecting sarcasm in her tone to mask the accuracy of that statement. All signs normal. No confusion, or more so than expected. No balance issues or sensitivity to light. Aside from almost being shredded, if that counts, he's doing fine. Sith lead dangerous lives. Teacher rebuffed. It's why I insisted on training his regeneration alongside his strength training, back when you were playing soldier. Veta stuck her tongue out at him, the cube flying closer. You like him? Like. She rolled her eyes. What are you, 12? Teacher hissed. Mock me all you want. Think twice and then again. Breaking that boy's heart will lead to nothing but misery. Especially for me. No concern for my poor feelings? Showing favorites is unfair, she teased. Teacher laughed scathingly. I've the feeling you have more experience than him by several orders of magnitude, so no. I'm not sure what I want. She told him quietly as she dug through panels, some minutes later. Go on dates, picnicking at the beach between invasions? I don't even know if he's interested. The cube wobbled. He keeps his emotions close to his chest, that's true. More so than most, I mean. Normal Sith, if you can call any of us normal, feed on them. They make us strong, give us power. It also makes it easy to deduce what drives us. I honestly couldn't tell you what drives him. Not anymore. She cocked her head. Anymore? He was a slave, more so than you realize. What he went through on Korriban shaped him, as it did for all of us. He craved freedom and control, as it was denied to him. But not anymore. She hummed. Are you sure about that? Teacher tisked. I'm sure he'll always value freedom and control, who doesn't, but it's not what drives him anymore. It scares you. She realized. Not knowing. The cube drew away, insulted. If only you knew, child. His ability with the lightsaber is adequate and his power lacking. Nothing new there. It's his progress with fleshcrafting that makes him dangerous. How he walked into a temple that has driven lords to madness and described it as an annoyance. That speaks of skill, the kind you can't train or teach. He ignored me, did you know? Managed to get into a proper healing trance and ignored my instruction. Veta scoffed. You're scared because he's good at healing. I am not scared, teacher hissed dangerously. I am cautious. Cautious of what will happen when soldiers realize he can make them near immortal. What will happen when he finds more like you? He shook his head at her puzzlement. It doesn't matter. Think before deciding what to do about your crush. Teacher snidely ordered. Then find out if he feels the same. Use those mammalian assets you mortals seem so fascinated with. Morgan stumbled down the stairs, making her jump to her feet. It didn't seem he had heard them. The datapad flashed as he pointed it at them. We've got our marching order. Balmorra, will you stop fidgeting? Mila ordered, irritated. We're meeting Lord Morgan, not the Emperor. Krupar scowled at her. Easy for you to say. You're not the one that scared his whatever she is. From all reports he favors her, so forgive me for being a little nervous. Mad Mouse is not the type to punish a misunderstanding. Soft voice assured the pureblood. They had been waiting for an hour now, but he was amusing himself with some mental chess. He had quite liked the wooden set he had found here, even if it was technically looted, but for now he had to make do with playing against himself. We haven't seen him for months. Astra pointed out, throwing fuel on the fire as usual. Who knows what he will do? Soft voice sighed as Krupar looked at her with wide eyes. For all that Special Forces had shaped him into a terrifying effective specialist, he could be so easy to tease. Well, I'm not the one who basically swore him a life oath. He shot back after a second, making soft voice raise an eyebrow. That was true, and a good deflection. Astra narrowed her eyes. That was a group decision, one I remember you voting for. Don't put that on me because I'm the one that told him. Soft voice chuckled softly, the sound lost in the arguing. It was the first time they'd been together for almost 2 weeks, with how the war had been pulling them in all directions. He'd missed them. Not that the new recruits are bad. He admonished himself. They just need time. And retraining, but mostly time. Finding Sith recruits that had a snowball's chance in hell of fitting in had been a stroke of luck to begin with. He smiled as he remembered how Myrla had kicked them into the dust, quite effectively breaking their delusion that she was weak because she was polite. They'd learn. He felt Morgan's signature as an elevator came down, turning towards it. The others followed, their arguing forgotten as the doors opened. Something was wrong. His old friend's shield was far too good to get an accurate read on, well, anything, but his body language was off. He didn't know the Twi'lek personally, but she seemed guarded, too. Getting reports on Mad Mouse had proven more difficult as of late, with his apprenticeship to a Darth and all, but he had stayed informed on his activities as best he could. As Kripar had said, those two were thick as thieves. Quite accurate, seeing as the Twi'lek used to be one. The Twi'lek spotted them first, narrowing her eyes. Her hand stayed close to her blaster, only relaxing as Morgan whispered something to her. His friend strode towards him, clasping his offered forearm. He remembered reading his friend had taken to wearing armor, so it was strange to see him without. Soft voice. It's good to see you. And you, my friend. He replied warmly, wondering why they were whispering. It sounded normal enough, if a tad gravelly. He turned to the Twi'lek, nodding in greeting. Zethix, pleased to meet you. She nodded in return, her eyes piercing into Kripar. Veta. I already know that one. The pureblood stiffened, his face blanking. Lady Veta. My apologies for our interaction on Dromund Kaas. It was not my intention to present myself in a threatening manner. His friend stayed silent, watching but not intervening. Soft voice did the same, curious. Mad Mouse had no problems taking charge, and he doubted his friend had changed that much, so he wanted her to solve this herself. He wouldn't intervene, in any case. Don't worry about it. Veta finally answered, turning to inspect the others. Astra was the first to take back initiative, stepping forward. She always had been a social engineer. Astra. She introduced. Pleasure, I'll meet new. Veta's eyebrow shot up, returning the greeting in roll while the tip of her right leku curled upwards. From what he remembered that meant greetings, but he hadn't studied the language as Astra had. So how's the boss? Been keeping him out of trouble, I hope. Astra teased. It still amazed him how she could get people to talk to her like old friends. How she could insert into and twist any narrative she wanted. Not 3 weeks ago she'd turned a resistance captain so inside out he'd spilled whatever she wanted, desperate to please her. This time, however, she'd miscalculated. Veta flinched, gripping her still holstered blaster. Morgan put a hand on her shoulder. It's all right. He assured her, turning to them. There was an incident when we left Dromund Kaas, the scars of which haven't quite healed. Afraid I'll not be combat ready for a few more days. Veta scowled at him, noting how it seemed a familiar gesture to them both. An incident? You got blown apart by a fucking lunatic with a dead man's switch. He suppressed a trill of alarm, turning to inspect Morgan more closely. He was still alive, clearly, but it explained the suppressed limp. His friend sighed. I got sloppy. Graythan noticed my tendency for lightsaber combat, so rigged a resurrected assassin with a dead man's switch. Won't happen again, now that I know what to look for. Soft voice narrowed his eyes. When was this? Not too recently, or the damage to your leg and vocal cords shouldn't have healed yet. Strangely, his friend smiled. Well, good to know not all my secrets are documented yet. It was a few days ago. I've been studying since we last saw each other. Clearly. He replied, lacing his voice with understanding he didn't feel. Now enough holding up traffic. Darth Lacris wants to see you, and I answer to her for the duration of my time on Balmorra. Veta kept a close eye on her boss's supposed allies, but she had to admit they seemed adequately protective. Balmorra was a war-torn hellhole, as far as she was concerned, and Morgan wasn't at 100%, but the spaceport looked in good condition. It wasn't until they left the port, and upon seeing the clear skies, that she was reminded of its current status. The city was covered with a translucent dome, that little visual detail alone making her want to double-check her blasters. She'd been on planets like this before, but it had always been for jobs. Short get-in and out operations, either stealing something or supplying overpriced goods to desperate rebels. Staying to fight wasn't exactly on her to-do list, but she supposed it could be worse. They could be on the side of the resistance. After another subtle inspection, deciding to trust Morgan when he said he trusted them, and smirking back at Astra when she caught her, she peeled off. 4 of them should be enough to protect Morgan, and she had things to fence. Time to go shopping, she thought gleefully. Her acquired goods were burning a hole in her metaphorical pocket, and they needed new armor. Something more protective than what they had, since she hadn't quite anticipated being bombed when they got it. She was an old hand at finding black markets, and Balmorra was a better place for it than most. The market, a misnomer, since it was more dealing with the right person and getting your stuff delivered later, was quite expansive. It might be under occupation, and there might be a war going on, but smugglers existed for a reason. Those brave, or stupid, enough to risk imperial ire got rich quick, especially in a war zone. Another reason the planet had a still-functioning underworld, aside from the fact you'd never be able to kill one entirely, was the factories. Balmorra was covered with them, and ones that specialized in high-value weaponry. Prototype battle droids, disruptor rifles and so much more, all for the right price. Veta didn't have the right price, not yet. But the things she had rightfully taken from Graythan had value, especially after she had them appraised. Value she was planning to turn into credits, and then getting both of them some proper armor. The kind her once owner had worn. The kind that shielded against high-yield blasts, and came with redundant layers of shielding. It took her half an hour to convince some thug to bring her to someone important, only needing to fend off 2 desperate thieves in the meanwhile. She hadn't even needed to use her strength, something part of her found disappointing. Then it was walking, being guided by a street rat through tunnels and, surprisingly, abandoned military facilities. She wondered if they were still under the dome, but had no way to check. She rolled her eyes at the old factory they finally stopped at, the rust-covered machines still standing where they once produced munitions. Maybe it worked on some, but to her it looked quaint. The scowling mook waiting there certainly did. She had seen Morgan terrify hundreds of rebels into executing their own leaders. Seen how a Sith's rage could warp reality, Barras's screams shaking the walls. How the temple had twisted slaves into lords, and how her boss had built an army out of predators. The mook scowling at her inspired little fear, and she promised herself to wait another 5 before finding someone else. Big Boss, as the mook had called him, took 4. She immediately regretted waiting, and had to suppress a flare of irrational anger at the sight of him. A Trandoshan. Like the ones that tore her family apart, muttering about offerings. Like the ones that had killed her sister all those years ago. Veta still remembered the indignation on her face when they had found out they were to be separated. Tiva had tried to escape, refusing to be parted from her. So you are the one selling artifacts, hum? Big Boss mused. What do you have then, little Twi'lek? Veta resisted snapping his neck on the spot, taking out her collection. Big Boss inhaled deeply. 2 Rakota machines, broken but in good condition otherwise. The helm of Rebans, still rumored to hold his spirit. 6 jewelry pieces, none of the same set. She sold cheerily, no note of her feelings in her voice. Showing no rage was an old skill, learned long before she ran with pirates. A worthy offering. Big Boss praised. But that is not the helm of Rebans. She smiled. I disagree. Had it appraised before coming here. Sending over the document for it, and all the others as well, she waited as the Trandosian read them. No need to inform him the inspections had been done off holograms, let alone by an old contact of hers. One of the few not dead or refusing to speak to her. Not that the old man knows my name. She reflected. Probably still thinks I'm that art thief from Coruscant. The big boss made a call, turning back a few minutes later. My own people tell me Ada is a reputable appraiser, enough so that my own appraiser has rechecked her work. It seems I will need to clean house after this is done. Veta raised her eyebrow, making the Trandosian continue. I already have the helm of Rebans, you see. Making me aware of a possible traitor has already made this a profitable dealing, so I will spare us both the haggling. She frowned, annoyed at not being able to fleece the bastard. Then she took a deep breath, because she was letting personal feelings influence work. They both needed better armor, Morgan more than ever. $750 for everything, and I will personally introduce you to the best arms dealer this side of the conflict. Veta scoffed. What makes you think I'm looking to buy? Because if you weren't, you'd have held onto these until you'd found a collector, not a middleman. I may not know you, but I know those like you. So he wanted her to buy from his allies. Fine. She needed to wrap this up anyway, and not having to bully her way through the lower ranks would save time. Fine. I'll need the credits in cash, and the meeting soon. The Trandoshan whistled, a pair of mercs wheeling in a card. Big Boss took her money out of it, and soon she was holding 750,000 credits in a little sack on her waist. That score rivaled the best of her old days, and it was all hers. Morgan would probably just tell me not to spend it all in one place. She thought fondly. Never mind trying to take a cut. Army can meet soon, if it's weapons you're after. Armor too, but droids are out of stock. Not just for him, either. Imps have the factories on those locked tight. Just armor. She confirmed easily. Droids were never her kind of thing anyway. How long is soon? Half hour. Big Boss replied as he turned, motioning to the mook. I'll have the lad show you somewhere more comfortable to wait, now that we know each other. The two mercs fell into step behind their boss as he left her with the mook, Big Boss hissing to them as they walked. Round up everyone, full meeting. I better find this is one enormous misunderstanding, and whoever fucked it better be glad I haven't found a buyer to that helm yet. Reputation is everything, so selling fake merchandise is a shit move. Why am I telling you this? A goldfish has more brain cells than you to put together. Go on, get. Round everyone up. The waiting room was well appointed, and Army hobbled in 20 minutes after she had gotten horribly bored. Bored enough she contemplated arm wrestling the mook in the room with her, but reason won out. Better to not flaunt unnatural strength. Army was, to her surprise, a Jawa. One smart enough to bring his own translator droid, so that was a good sign. She'd met exactly one person capable of understanding Javanese, and she was pretty sure he'd been faking. Big Boss tells me you wish for strong armor, yes? Tells me you have many credits to trade. Veta had bargained with Jawa before, if not enough to make a habit out of it. Enough, however, to know they made themselves sound juvenile on purpose. Made people underestimate them. Even odds this one understood basic, too. Sneaky little furballs. 2 sets, both with a custom fit. 4 layers of shielding on each, with their own integrated power supply. None of that second-rate prone to explode shit either. Proper fusion reactors. One light, another heavy. Here's the specs. She sent the info packet to the translator droid, it spitting out a string of incomprehensible noise that made the Jawa nod excitedly. Veta praised herself on saving their measurements from last time. A customer that knows what she wants, yes? This is good. Twi'lek and human, both within standard deviation of the norm. This is all possible, even the reactors. But only because you came to Army, yes? Here it comes. The unreasonable prices. Maybe the rights to Balmorra, that'd be a good one. Or her kidney. Had that happen once, since the Jawa had thought it made for a good replacement part in a speeder. Somehow. 500. The droid told her. She was only just fast enough to put an outraged expression on her face. 500 was an actual reasonable price, so something was very wrong here. In addition to a favor from your Sith friend. The Gamorrean army had brought, one kitted out in enough armor she had to guess at his gender, took a threatening step forward. Maybe something to do with how her hand had gone to her blaster. I'm not sure this is a path you wish to go down, Army. Army waved his guard back, the droid injecting a soothing undertone to its voice. A misunderstanding. No threat, just an offer. I'm no fool, yes? You cannot speak for Sith, I understand. Bring him my offer, and the armor is yours for 500. Veta drummed her fingers on her blaster, thinking. I want the armor now, and I won't promise he'll listen. Yes, deal. The droid said, Army sticking out his hand. They shook on the deal, Veta having to bend down to reach it. The appreciative whistle took her off guard, turning around to a new face leering at her. Now that business is done, how about you and me get a drink? I can show you a real good time, if you know what I mean. Army took an alarmed step back at her predatory smile, his guard shielding the small Jawa behind his massive legs. The Mook, the one that had guided her here, smirked and stepped back, holding up his hands in a clear gesture of surrender. She walked over to the new face, cocking her head. Now, big boy. Let's make sure you can handle what you're implying. Her hand shot forward, twisting his arm behind his back and slamming him against the wall in the process. Then she applied pressure, forcing it up. The man was screaming by the time resistance snapped, drowning out the sound of his bones breaking. She caught him as he collapsed, lifting him up by the throat. Focus on my voice, Veta soothed, his wild eyes landing on her. Try not to speak, it'll just damage your vocal cords. Now, it seems you're not quite up to it. Don't feel bad. My standards have skyrocketed lately. Next time, try to gauge someone's mood before hitting on them. They might be sitting on some unexpressed anger. They might even take that out on you, if you're unlucky. She turned to Army, dropping the man. So how fast can you get the armor fitted and brought here? So the new recruits are coming along well enough. Not the same as the old crew, of course, but they'll adjust. Soft voice finished, making Morgan smile. It was good to see his friend again. Even better to see him flourish. So you're working for Darth Maul now? And here I thought I was the one with the most influential master. Soft voice scoffed. Never met the man. An apprentice of his apprentice, for training and such, but no more than that. He sends me where I'm needed, but at least I get my own people. Turns out having a battalion of Sith used to working together, and then attaching a few thousand troops to them, is a rather dangerous combination. I bet. Morgan smiled, turning to the other three he was sharing a turbolift with. How about the rest of you? Having fun? Can't complain. Astra covered smoothly, Kirpar and Mila both sharing a panicked look at being addressed. It's been interrogation and infiltration for me, and I'm sure Mila could tell you more about her life than I can. Mila shot her a betrayed look, making Morgan smile. It seemed they had gotten closer without the constant fear of having to kill each other. The Overseer had been a bitch like that. I've been handling portions of military command, to prepare me for assuming the effective command of a major. It frees Lord Zethix's schedule to train and look at the bigger picture. Always appreciate it when you make it sound like I do nothing. Soft voice teased dryly. Mila spluttered, Kirpar stepping to the rescue. Forgive her. She's been nervous since we heard of your arrival. Something about wanting to make a good impression, since you're one of the first to believe in her. Mila turned red, stomping on Kirpar's foot. He yanked it out of the way, smiling at her reassuringly. No need to be ashamed. I'm sure Lord Morgan understands that girls want to impress their crushes. She spluttered more, Astra rolling her eyes. Oh, now he's all confident. Not an hour ago you were fidgeting like a schoolboy called to the headmaster's office, terrified he did something wrong. I didn't go to school. Krupar pointed out smoothly. He frowned. That wasn't the defense I thought it would be. Show time. Soft voice commanded. The three turned serious, Miela's complexion rapidly returning to normal. Fast enough. Morgan raised an eyebrow. That looked, if he was forced to guess, like flesh grafting. The door opened into a grand office, a view spreading out over the city. Darth Lacris was facing the window, her back to them as they entered. They all politely ignored the finely dressed corpse on the floor. I am Darth Lacris, and I've been tasked with securing Balmorra. A task my master has given me ample Sith for, so I am left to wonder what Barras's newest enforcer is doing here. Morgan nodded at that. Darth Lacris was the apprentice to Ma, so no surprise he'd entrusted her with his experimental Sith battalion. Darth Barras wishes me to assist in any capacity you deem necessary, my lady. How kind of him. She praised. I'm sure no ulterior motives are at play. Nevertheless, your presence here has been cleared with the council. It seems Barras still has friends in high places. She walked to the desk, sitting down and glaring at her datapad. You can consider yourself below Zethix during your stay here, to follow whatever orders he gives you. He, at least, has shown a level of competence past getting blown to pieces. As you command, my lady, Morgan assented calmly. It had been a while since he'd had to endure this level of rudeness, but it wasn't like he cared about her opinion of him. Is there a particular task you wish me to accomplish, or am I free to wander? Darth Lacris sneered. The subtlety of a rancor. Assist Zethix with his missions. If those happen to coincide with whatever Barras wishes done, so be it. If I find out this somehow impedes my effort here, I will kill you. As you say, my lady. Astera. Miela. Stay. I have questions about your latest reports. The rest of you, out. Morgan contemplated the interaction as the lift brought them back down. Figured she'd want to keep her eye on me personally, but it seems I'm not that important. Guess I'm under your capable command, oh mine lord. Soft voice snorted. We both know that's not going to happen. She's usually more even than this, though. Must really hate Barras. Oh? Figured we would pretend, at least. Seems a bit brash to just ignore a Darth's orders like that. You gonna do something that'll fuck me over? Morgan shook his head. Nah. I'm here to kill Commander Rylan, so if nothing else I'll be helping you. See? No need to pretend after all. It'll be fun to work together again. He laughed. Fun. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Speaking of which, how about a spa? Could use some exercise to see how my healing's coming along. Soft voice led them to his battalion's sparring rooms, finding it empty. Krupar bowed as they arrived, mentioning debriefing his squad as he left. Morgan turned to his friend. He never did answer my question. What do you have him do these days? Special operations. He pretty much commands what special forces we have, so he's doing well. Him, Miela and Astera are the reason I've been able to focus on training the new Sith. Miela as my second, Krupar to lead the elite and Astera to head the intelligence division. Morgan nodded easily, stretching. Delegation is key. Haven't really had to delegate all that much, since it's just me and Veta. Soft voice opened with a lazy probe, allowing his practice saber to be slapped away. Morgan responded with a push, leveraging strength to press him back. Soft voice grunted as neither could get the upper hand, Morgan pirouetting as his opponent increased the pressure. Mind answering a question? Morgan scowled, flexing his shoulder. Found another weak point. Sure. How, exactly, did you compress months of healing into days? Soft voice sprung forward, Morgan stepping aside. The block was off, his reflexes a little slower than normal. His shoulder screamed, forced to take the brunt. Flesh grafting. Enhanced healing and strength, among other things. I find it fits me well. Still not quite back to normal, though. The Deveronian narrowed his eyes, probing carefully. You've gotten better. Flesh grafting. Thought so. Miela's been looking into it. Thought about making it mandatory, but the level of control needed makes it difficult. That it does. Glad to see my training on Dromund Kaas has closed the gap between us. Soft voice laughed as he had to dodge a practice saber coming at his head, Morgan just scraping his hand with his own. Take your false modesty and shove it. Figures you'd pick up telekinesis at some point, and that gap wasn't wide to begin with. Now my strength, my one big advantage, has been cruelly overtaken by vile sorcery. Morgan snorted. I normally use knives, stop complaining. They sparred until they were interrupted, Morgan using the stress to find what still needed healing. After 4 sessions of unintentionally ignoring Teacher, the cube had huffed and said to do it alone. He felt a little bad about it, but couldn't argue with the results. Few people could go from near death to almost healthy in less than a week. Veta dragged the piece of armor into the room, Morgan holding up his hand to stop the match. He looked at her, raising an eyebrow. New armor was adorning her frame. Very form-fitting armor. It was also closer to medium than light, something he appreciated. It was still sleek and painted in muted colors, but clearly a few steps above her old set. Her blasters remained the same, but a new sniper hung off her back. Got some new toys? She called, bending over to set her burden against the wall. Morgan noticed how she bent further than strictly necessary, giving him a good look at her armored ass. New armor, and even a jobsy. Well, the job is more of an offer, but it's pretty good. Morgan saw her smirk when she turned around, rolling his eyes. Of course she was messing with him. He should have known better, really. Soft Voice had stepped out of the arena, hanging up his practice saber. This was fun, but I unfortunately have work to do. Chambers have been prepared, if I know Miela at all, so you can sleep in friendly territory for as long as you need. Let me know when you're ready to go after Rylan, since I'm sure our approach will coincide in one way or another. He waved goodbye, leaving him with Veta, who had, by now, graduated from smirking to hopping in place. Try it on. Morgan rolled his eyes again, walking over. His new armor looked much like hers, probably part of the same set, but heavier. Thick plating, especially around the vital organs, with a full helmet. He spied a wetsuit underneath. 4 overlapping shields, with its own internal power supply. She boasted. Rated for limited space exposure and plating so strong no little bomb will even scratch it. Veta frowned. A lightsaber will still fuck it, so be a tad careful. It's great. He praised. Help me into it. She did, grumbling how she got into her own piece herself. He decided against pointing out her fingers did rather more touching than was warranted, not wanting to give her more fuel. Veta grinned as he put on his helmet, the calm sinking with her own. About that job. Before I start, we don't need to take it. I'd like to, since it pays well and it's probably something we'll end up doing anyway, but it's not like I gave my word. He waved his hand. It's fine. What needs doing? Army, the Jawa I bought all this stuff from, wants the schematics for a new prototype battle droid. Willing to pay $250,000 for them, so obviously well guarded. Apparently kept in the mainframe of the Balmorra Arms factory, and wouldn't you know it, the Resistance without Republic support has made its headquarters there. Morgan nodded, testing his mobility. That does indeed sound like something we'll end up doing anyway. Right? Veta grinned. So, what now? Meeting Barras's contact, Malavai Quinn. We'll see how much daylight we'll have left after that. Quinn was, by their standards, not very far away. Sobrik, serving as both the port city and headquarters for the Imperial military, was a fraction of Dromund Kaas. It was one of the reasons they could afford to keep a shield running over it, despite the ruinous amount of power it must cost. It had been abandoned, bombed and rebuilt by Imperial engineers, so it could be argued it was more military base than city. It still housed many civilians, but since the military had built it, they had built it for their purposes first. It took only some asking around, Vetter asking and him standing there, to find the man. When they did, it wasn't what Morgan was expecting. Focus, Gillen's. Breath. Copy me. In, out. Slow. In, out. A silent but crying ensign was on the floor, Quinn sitting beside him. It was a barracks, clear as day, but aside from those two it was empty. Morgan raised his hand to Vetter, who sent him an indignant look. I wasn't gonna barge in there. The comm crackled. I have people's skills, unlike some. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know what to do, Gillen's babbled. There were so many of them. They killed him. Tore him apart and flew off like it was nothing. Wingmore are dangerous, Quinn soothed. And we're not supposed to be anywhere close to your patrol route. You are alive, Ensign. Alive. Breath. The lieutenant's head shot up, looking at them. His eyes dipped to the lightsaber hanging off Morgan's belt, eyes widening. Come now, Ensign Gillen's. Go find the others. Get some food in you. The ensign shuffled out, not sparing either of them a glance. Quinn stood, bowing formally. Apologies, my lord. Lieutenant Malavi Quinn. I'm to be your liaison here on Balmorra. Well met, Lieutenant. What happened? Quinn flinched slightly, looking at the door. Gillen's is a local, one whose house was bombed by resistance forces about a year ago, killing his family. He's been an ardent supporter of the Empire since, so much so they graduated him early from training. Good shot, loyal to a fault and a near expert with explosives thanks to his dad. A miner by trade. He clarified at Vetter's raised eyebrow, who by now had joined Morgan in taking her helmet off. Him and Harbu were ambushed during their patrol by Wingmore, dangerous flying insects that command reported didn't exist within 50 clicks of Sobrik. Quinn's eyes unfocused. They were wrong, and now I have to bury another one of mine. Quite possibly scarring Gillen's for life, as an added bonus. The lieutenant focused. Apologies, you are not here to listen to me complain. Lord Barras will brief you personally, but I'm here to acquaint you with the climate on Balmorra. How much do you already know? Morgan sat on one of the bunks, his armor making it creak. It held, to his relief. That would not have been a good first impression. The Empire conquered it during the last war, with a bitter resistance forming immediately after. Rumored to have Republic backing, and extraordinarily well supplied. The numerous weapon facilities on the planet means they can fight far above their weight class, and sympathies run high for them. They want their home back, and will fight to the end to achieve it. I'm not one to judge the righteousness of their actions, Quinn said carefully. But you are correct. High levels of support and expertise has been reported on most, if not all, attacks made by the resistance. The Imperial Conquest Consolidation Corps, or ICCC, have their hands full. I'm afraid you cannot expect much support outside of myself and my men for your mission, my lord. Well, that wasn't true. That's all right, Lieutenant. We'll have to make do. Quinn looked relieved, walking to the holoprojector mounted against the wall. I have a secure line to Lord Barras. I'll patch him through. The grainy image of Barras soon joined them, towering above them imperiously. I see you've convened with my apprentice. Very good. Lieutenant, leave us. Quinn bowed and left without a word, Vetter joining him. Unlike Quinn, she stopped at the door. Out of earshot but still blocking access to the room. Morgan suppressed a trill of fondness, focusing on Barras. Quinn owes his career to me, but we should keep the details of your mission between the two of us. Too late for that, Morgan reflected. We must act swiftly. Commander Rylan must be silenced, preferably with his cover intact. He acts as my central contact for all operatives in this sector. Losing such a valuable piece is bad enough, and I will not have the entire sector purged. Barras scowled, leaning forward. Quinn is tracking the investigator sent by the Jedi. That means we have to cover our tracks before you kill Rylan. Destroy the evidence that links Ryland to the sabotaging of Balmora's defense systems during the war. Break into the satellite control tower and wipe it clean. Quinn has all the relevant details. The hologram flickered out, Barris's voice drifting out before the connection cut entirely. Consider it an introduction to proper war, apprentice. Try not to die, but if you must, take out the tower in the process. Veta dragged Quinn back inside, the lieutenant smiling slightly at something she had said. Morgan felt an unexpected pang of jealousy, smashing it an instant later. Me and my men are ready to assist, my lord. Morgan nodded. Very good, Lieutenant. We will depart at sunrise tomorrow. He waited a second, but the lieutenant said nothing. Veta rolled her eyes. This is the part where you protest if you need more time, Quinn. He won't cut your head off. Quinn hesitated. Afternoon would be better, my lord. That part of the region is covered in steep mountains, the cold making an early assault difficult. Its protections are automated, so the time of attack will not matter to them. Afternoon it is, Morgan agreed readily. I am no military man, Lieutenant. Veta is correct. I will rely on you to point out any mistakes I might make, preferably before I make them. Quinn straightened, relaxing. As you say, my lord. I will prepare my men. Veta piped up when Quinn was gone, turning to him as they walked out. I like him. Can we keep him when we're done here?